All right, let's jump right in. We're tackling one of the biggest, most important questions in the crypto world right now. We've all heard the promise of these new decentralized systems, right? Power to the people. But when it comes to governance tokens, who's really pulling the strings? Let's follow the power and see where it leads.
And this quote, it just nails it. It's the perfect place for us to start. Because this isn't just about elegant code or breakthrough technology anymore. Nope. It's about people, it's about power dynamics, and yeah, it's about politics, all playing out on-chain. Governance is that human layer that sits on top of everything, and it decides the future.
Okay, so what exactly is a governance token? Well, the simplest way to think about it is like a digital key to a boardroom. Holding one of these gives you the right to have a say. You can vote on changing the rules, you can propose brand new features, you can even help decide how the project's money gets spent. It's your ticket to the decision-making table.
And you have to understand, the original idea behind these tokens was, frankly, revolutionary. It was a direct shot at the old world, where a handful of executives in a closed-off room made all the calls. This was meant to be a complete redistribution of power, from the few to the many.
And this comparison here tells the whole story, doesn't it? On the left, you've got the world we know, murky decisions, the constant risk of being silenced or deplatformed, and exclusive access for insiders. And on the right, that's the dream. No single king, everyone's invited to participate, and every decision is made out in the open for the world to see. This was the decentralized utopia these tokens were supposed to build.
But, well, it's never that simple, is it? The reality turned out to be a whole lot messier. It turns out that power is a tricky thing. Even with the best intentions, it doesn't just vanish. It just finds new ways to concentrate.
And it all really boils down to one incredibly simple rule that most of these systems are built on. One token equals one vote. Now, on the surface, that sounds perfectly fair, right? The more you have invested, the more say you get. But that simple little rule, it has some massive and often unintended consequences.
And this chart, wow, it shows you everything you need to know. In almost every major protocol, the token distribution is anything but equal. Look at that massive bar. That's the whales, the venture capital firms, the project founders. And then look over at that tiny little sliver. That's everybody else. So when you have a one token, one vote system, this is what the power structure actually looks like.
This creates what's essentially a plutocracy, which is just a fancy term for a system that's ruled by the wealthy. And this quote says it all. Just having a token, or even a few, doesn't really give you a voice. You have to have enough tokens to actually move the needle.
Now, if that massive wealth gap wasn't enough, you've got this other huge problem, voter apathy. The numbers are kind of shocking. In a lot of these big protocols, fewer than 10% of the people who can vote actually do. And you have to ask, why? Well, for the average person, digging into complex governance proposals is time-consuming. And honestly, if you know the whales can outvote you anyway, it's easy to feel like, why bother? This just makes the problem worse, concentrating power even more in the hands of the very few who do show up.
Okay, so we've covered how power can be imbalanced. But now we get into the really scary stuff. We're moving from a system being unfair to a system being outright exploited. Because wherever you have rules and a big pot of money, you can bet someone is trying to figure out how to break them. So let me walk you through the anatomy of a governance attack using a flash loan, because it is both terrifying and kind of brilliant. Here's how it works. Step 1. An attacker borrows a huge amount of governance tokens instantly with zero collateral. Step 2. They use that massive stack of tokens to become the majority voter, just for a moment. Step 3. They instantly pass their own malicious proposal, something like send all the money in the treasury to my wallet. And then, Step 4. In the very same transaction, they pay back the loan. It all happens in a flash.
And this isn't just some theoretical risk. This is real. The Beanstalk protocol lost about $182 million in a single governance attack using this exact method. That's the kind of devastating real-world consequence you face when a system has a vulnerability like this.
Okay, so that's pretty grim. But here's the good news. The story absolutely does not end there. This community is incredibly resilient, and these failures have sparked a whole new wave of innovation, with people designing much smarter, fairer, and more secure systems. So let's look at some of the new ideas people are trying out. You've got the standard token-weighted model we've been talking about. It's simple, but it heavily favors the rich. And you've got fascinating things like quadratic voting. The idea here is that your second vote costs more than your first, and your third costs more than your second. This brilliant little mechanism amplifies the power of a large number of small holders over a single whale.
And then there's reputation-based systems, which try to detach power from money altogether, instead giving more voting weight to people who have a long track record of positive contributions. So what all these new ideas are pointing to is a pretty fundamental shift in how we think about power. There's a growing realization that, hey, maybe the person with the most money doesn't automatically have the best ideas. Wealth does not equal wisdom. Instead, expertise and contribution should matter. And more, it looks like the best solutions are going to be hybrid models, systems that cleverly combine the best parts of all these different ideas, with security as the absolute top priority.
And that brings us right up to today, to the future of all of this. Because this battle for who is really in control, it is far from over. In fact, as more money and more traditional players enter the space, it's only getting more intense. This slide really captures the core conflict perfectly. On one side, you still have that original, scrappy, grassroots crypto spirit, community-driven with all kinds of diverse voices. But on the other side, here come the institutions, venture capital, hedge funds. They're bringing a ton of money and expertise for sure, but they're also concentrating power in a way that starts to look, well, a lot like the old world we were trying to escape from. So, all of this leaves us with one last, really important question to chew on. Maybe we've been thinking about this all wrong. Maybe decentralization isn't some finish line, some final destination that we just arrive at. Maybe it's something different. Maybe it's a responsibility, something that has to be constantly defended and debated and redesigned day in and day out by the very people it's supposed to serve. What do you think?